Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Golden Handcuffs Guy podcast. Today I want to tell you about how 3 days changed my life.
Is it going to be something that builds? Is it going to be a life-giving interaction in some big or small way? Or are they just going to be an accessory or even an obstacle?
Get yourself uncomfortable. Do something that makes you not want to be there.
Dude, I can't even imagine thinking the way that I used to think.
We were living parts of our vision and we wanted more of it.
I want to tell you about a story about my life. It's one of the bigger events in my life, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to define a lot of how the rest of my life goes. It's not something that happened because of a choice that I made, but a series of events that unfolded that literally changed my life forever. It all started in the summer of 2018. One evening I was giving my daughters a bath, and I was just getting ready to rinse the soap off of my oldest child, and I took the bucket of water and started to pour it over my head, and I felt something pulling my back, and it felt like it normally would if you're about to throw your back out. And I recognized that, so I stopped right away, and I stood up and I started stretching and made sure that, okay, I think I'm pretty safe. I'm not gonna actually throw my back out. I'm good to keep going. And as I bent over the tub to finish rinsing off my daughter, I felt a pull. Now, I've thrown my back out before, but it was never anything nearly as bad as what I did there. I dropped the water and I controllably fell onto the floor, so that way I didn't hit my head on the side of the tub or anything. But it wasn't that I just took my time to lay down on the floor either. I had to get down very quickly because my back was already beginning to be very tight and hurt very badly. And I hollered for my wife because I was in the bathroom alone giving the girls a bath, and they were still in the bathtub, and I was now unable to even stand or move, lying on the bathroom floor. I didn't want them to be in danger in the water. So she came in, I told her what happened, and she finished giving the girls a bath. I was just laying there the whole time. I probably laid there for probably about an hour in total. But while she was getting them all ready, I was just trying to figure out how to get the pain to stop. I had when I laid down on the floor, I had my hands up by my head, like up above my shoulders, and kind of like you would if you were almost in a push-up position. And I had such intense pain with that I couldn't even lift my arms enough to bring them down by my sides to get into a little bit more comfortable position. I finally kind of forced through that and was able to lay there in a little bit more comfort for the rest of the time while she got them ready for bed. But she came back in afterwards, and we took quite a while to get me up off the floor. It took several attempts. I've never thrown my back out that badly, but it hurt. She had to help me all the way into our living room, which isn't very far. When I say all the way, it just took a lot of effort on both of our parts, with me leaning on her quite a bit and trying to walk at the same time. So she got me in the recliner, called up the chiropractor. There was apparently a 24-hour chiropractor set online. Called him up, and he's like, and I don't know why Google says that, but I'm actually not. But even if I was, I wouldn't be able to do anything for you tonight if your back is that bad anyway. So just take it easy tonight, and we'll take a look at it in the morning. So that's what we did. I tried to take some pain relievers and get my back going as much as I could. And as I was sitting there in that chair thinking about what just happened, I was like, man, did I really just throw my back out giving my girls a bath? Like, that's not a very manly story. I'm going to have to come up with something better than this. Like, I had to be wrestling a bear or something, because I can't believe a 2-pound little bowl of water just put me out. So that's the story I was trying to go with, is that I wrestled a bear, and that really sent my back into that. But of course, people don't buy it. True story was, I was giving my daughters a bath, and old age was starting to show its sign in my mid-20s. Great. So went to the chiropractor, and he got me straightened out, got me to walking a little better. But this problem just persisted for quite a while, and I kept going to the chiropractor. You know, he was doing a great job getting me helped out, but the pain was just not going away. So I really needed to see a different doctor and see if I can get some images and know what was going on in there. So I finally did. I didn't have a primary doctor yet at the time. I mean, somebody in their mid-20s, that's not really usually the first thing you think about. So I had to search around and find somebody, but I was really just looking for the first person that I could get into as soon as possible and get some images and see what was going on in my back. And I found this doctor, got in there, and we were going through my medical history as a first-time patient would, and I told him everything, and he ordered the MRI. But as I was looking to leave the doctor's office, at the end of our appointment, he asked if there was anything else that I wanted to talk about, anything else in my history or any other current issues, kind of thing, is what he was talking about. And I said, well, there is this spot on my toe that I noticed a couple days ago. Would you like to see that? And he said, well, sure. So he put on some inspection gloves, and he felt it, and it kind of felt like a blister. And that's really what it looked like. So he says, well, I think it's a cyst. I can either refer you to a podiatrist, or we can keep an eye on it, watch it for 30 days and see if it goes away. I was like, well, I really don't know that it's an issue yet. Let's keep an eye on it and see if it goes away. So that was on a Thursday. Saturday, my cyst had festered up a little bit. So, being I thought I was a cyst, I decided to start poking it with a needle and try to drain it out. And nothing was coming out. If you've ever had anything like that, normally you get some kind of pus, but there was nothing, zero, absolutely nothing coming out of that. So then Sunday it festered up a good bit more, and so I kept poking it with a needle. And then it was starting to get pretty angry. So Monday morning, this thing was so big now that my toe could no longer touch the ground. This cyst was on the bottom of my toe, right between the ball of my foot and the pad of my big toe. So I went into Express Care, and like, oh great, here more doctors have been chasing around back problems, and now I'm in here for a little cyst on my toe, but it's big and angry. So the Express Care doctor, he takes one look at it and he says, oh my, you're in luck. There's a podiatrist here right now. He's the best. Come with me. So we go walking out of there, and I go over to the waiting room for the podiatrist, and they get me all checked in and everything. And nurse comes and gets me checked into the exam room, and talks about what's going on with that. And the the podiatrist, and apparently that's a tough word for me to say as much as I've been in there seeing him. The podiatrist came in, and he's really happy. Really, you could tell he really likes his job. So he starts checking out this spot on my toe, and he says, "Have you stepped on anything recently?" I said, "Not that I've noticed. I mean, I really only found it when I stepped on our flooring transition, where it transitions from our hardwood to the carpet in our house. Otherwise, I don't know that I really would have noticed it before." So he told the nurse, "Go ahead and get the equipment that you're going to need to cut it out." He said, "My guess is you probably stepped on something." He said, "Sometimes our body will form a granuloma around a splinter in order to fight it off, to keep our body from becoming infected by whatever foreign body gets into our own body." So the nurse brought in all the tools and everything, and some local anesthetic. He began to cut, and there was a bit of pain. It hurt a little bit. And so he gave me a second shot so I could stay completely still while he was cutting it out. And I didn't really feel anything after that. I kind of heard him snipping, but he cut the spot open on my foot and dug out what looked like an opaque little ball, probably about the size of a chickpea. And the color of it, like when I say it's opaque, it kind of looked like what I would imagine cartilage looks like. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's probably about the best description I have in my mind of it. So I didn't really think anything of it. There was a big hole in my foot. It was too big from that chickpea sized piece that he cut out to be able to just stitch up. So he had to pack it, and basically had an open wound for a little while. And they sent me on my way, checked for x-rays, make sure they got everything out. And so I did that. Everything looked clear. Called work and said, "Hey, I'm not supposed to walk on my foot for a little while. Just had the thing cut out unexpectedly. Won't be there." So I went home and rested. And then a couple days later, the hole had healed enough that I was able to go back into the podiatrist, and he was able to close it up with some stitches, but I still couldn't walk on it. And so I just started working from home during this time with work. They were gracious enough to allow me to do that. I wasn't very effective from home, but I was still able to contribute and be a part of my career. So I kind of used that time to my advantage to get some of the other issues, especially with my back, out of the way. And while I was waiting, I got a phone call from the nurse. And well, sorry, I got to back up for a second. But before I got this phone call from the nurse, when I went in to get the stitches out of my toe, I was talking to the podiatrist about the piece that he took out of my toe. He had sent it off for biopsy. He was worried that there was a chance there might be an infection. And his response about the situation was kind of weird. He said the biopsy lab didn't really know what that piece was that they took out of my toe. So they had to send it to another lab for more testing. So it's pretty strange. And so I was able to kind of start walking on it at that point. Started going to physical therapy for my back. I started slowly getting more active. And then one day I got a phone call from the nurse at the podiatrist. And she was going to schedule a follow-up call. So she said, "Can you come in at 2 o'clock on whatever day she was asking?" I said, yeah, no problem. She said, "Great. When you come in, you should bring your wife or another loved one with you." And when you hear that, you don't know what in the world's going on, but you know it's serious. And so my heart sank with that, and I said, okay, we'll be there. So the day of the appointment, we go in for our 2 o'clock appointment. We're there a little early. We walk up to the front desk where you check in at the doctor's office, a receptionist, and she said, "Do you know you have a referral in here?" I said, "Yeah, my primary doctor referred me over to physical therapy for my back." And she said, "No, this is for hematology." I said, "Oh, okay." I didn't know anything about that. So I finished checking in and sat down next to my wife, and immediately my wife and I did probably one of the worst things we could do. We pulled out our phones and started looking up what is hematology on good old interwebs. And this is what it said. It said, "The medical aspect of hematology is concerned with the treatment of blood disorders and malignancies, including types of hemophilia, leukemia, lymphoma, and sickle cell anemia." So reading that list of issues surrounding hematology, I was really starting to sink in that something was not right, and that they had really found something, that I was really there to address a serious issue. And that's why they wanted me to bring my wife, and that's what this was all about. So we went back to the exam room where the doctor was going to take a look at me. Nurse prepped me to take a look at my foot and make sure that the doctor thought everything was going good there. And then my primary doctor walked in with my podiatrist, and they weren't really planning on that. They were planning on each being in there one at a time, but they both came in at the same time, and so they kind of fumbled around that awkwardness. And my podiatrist then said, "Well, we still don't have your biopsy results back yet. I've called the lab and they can't release the report until they make their full determination. But what they did say is that it appears to be cutaneous T-cell lymphoma." He said the first lab couldn't make out what it was, so they sent it to the second lab. The second lab said they think it's cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, but they weren't sure. So they're going to send it to a lymphoma specialty lab in some other place to try to make a final determination. So that was pretty weird coming out of the doctor's mouth. That you could tell that they were pretty perplexed by that themselves. So my primary doctor jumped in and said, "This is something that's really difficult to determine. It's a type of cancer that they really only teach you about in med school. You don't normally actually see it in your medical practice. But the outlook on it's very positive. The 5-year survival rate's 95%. And I love my primary doctor. Like he's one of those guys that's like super smart, and he just kind of, his mind goes faster than what he realizes is going on at times. So when he said that the 5-year survival rate is 95%, my wife sitting across the room from me, what she heard is that I'm gonna die. So she started crying. Right, my podiatrist, he caught on the situation. He said, but we don't know that that's what it is for sure yet. We just wanted to prepare you with the preliminary information and make sure that we're hearing on our end, because it's taking so long to get you any results on what this is that we cut out of your toe." So my primary doctor said, "Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. So we're trying to be proactive with it. I've already reached out to some local oncologists to put in a referral just in case you need it. We're hoping you don't, but it's ready to go so that we can move things along in case we do need to get positive confirmation." Like, yeah, the receptionist told us that when we checked in, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, yeah, they're not supposed to do that." But he said, "Anyways, we think we got it all cut out when we removed that piece from your toe, and there's a chance we'll have to go back in and cut out the margins, but we'll wait for the oncologist to make that determination." And then they kind of went on with more information after that, just kind of telling me about how odd that case of cancer is, and what they were talking about is how rare it is, because what I went on to find out later is that that type of cancer normally only shows up in like 50 to 60-year-old men, and it normally shows up as a rash first on your skin. It doesn't go straight to a tumor, especially on your toe. So it was a whole bunch of weird, odd things all wrapped up into one, and yeah, they were pretty perplexed by it. They were determined to figure it out. I really felt comfortable that I had good doctors taking care of me, doing the right things with that. So the next stage of that was really trying to figure out, man, if I have cancer, what does this mean? How does my life change, or does it? So, when I left that doctor's office, I was pretty surprised, and my wife was really more upset than I was. I was really trying to keep a positive mindset as much as I could about that news, and I was trying to think about what it is and how I was just going to make the best of my situation and doing the things that I had to do. I started telling people about what had gone on. I told my family, told my boss, that sort of thing. I told my life coach, and he asked me, "What was your reaction when they first told you?" And after having told a few other people, that was kind of a breath of fresh air. Or, well, not really a breath of fresh air. It was a little odd that I'd hear that. Most of the other people's response was something more along the lines of surprise and sympathy. I'm so sorry to hear that kind of thing. So when I heard my coach say, "What was your reaction when they first told you?" I could tell that he really had an understanding for the situation in the room. And in my response, I remembered it. I said, "Well, it was kind of like, this is not my body. This is a problem that my body has to deal with." I really felt removed from the news, like it wasn't really something that was happening to me. And so he's like, "So kind of like you were a third-party observer." I said, "Yeah, that's exactly it." So, I continued telling people. Like I said, I told my boss. He offered me some time off, but I was pretty stubborn at that point. I really wanted to be one of those people who worked through the cancer treatments, despite the health problems and how it would affect my performance and my life. So I continued to go to work. But it wasn't long before I started getting these weird bumps all over my skin. And since the cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, cutaneous being skin, I was scared by that a bit. I thought that it might be more presentation of the same cancer, but found out that it was from stress. So when my boss returned from one of his trips, he sat me down and basically told me that he wanted me to take time off and go get healed. He said that my work would take care of itself and I didn't really need to worry about it until I got back. And to this day, I still can't express how much of a blessing this was for me. when you have an employer that treats you with that kind of care and respect, you develop a deeper attachment for them, and you remember that despite all the hard things you do, you're still all human, still here trying to work to make our own lives better. So as the days gone on, I started meeting with my oncologists and dermatologist, and a call came in again one day. It said that they were sending my sample on to another place. They said this time it was for genetic testing, because the lymphoma specialty place said that it had markers saying that it was both lymphoma and that it wasn't. So it was great news, if you can sense the sarcasm. But it wasn't long after that I had another call, and they did confirm that it was cutaneous T-cell lymphoma. That a genetic testing place was the end-all be-all test, and they said, yeah, definitely that's what it is. If you people who are listening to this right now ever get cancer, I really wish that I could say that my advice would be to not search for anything online. It messes with your psychological strength, seeing the true potential outcomes that your doctor doesn't tell you. So even though my doctors never gave me a prognosis or told me what stage of cancer I had, which is common with most cancers, I still searched, and that was a very bad idea. One of the things that came up during my search was a video of a young woman in the UK. She was talking about her cutaneous T-cell lymphoma and how it had spread to her lymphatic system, and her prognosis was only about 3 years. So what this means is that when you first get a diagnosis of cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, it's usually considered an extranodal type of cancer, which means that it's outside of the lymphatic system, because T-cell is more outside of your lymph nodes and your lymph vessels. B-cell tends to be more inside of that system. So T-cell is extranodal, extra being outside of that system. However, as it develops and grows, it can spread into your lymphatic system. And since your lymphatic system has a network all over your body, it can spread very quickly. And that is one of the later stages of cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, and that results in a prognosis of a pretty short time frame that is not inside of the scope that my primary doctor had originally told me, that it's in the 3-year time frame. That was also the time when I found out about the presentation of the cancer being so weird. The doctors were perplexed, but they hadn't really explained the depth of, yes, a 50 to 60-year-old man gets it, not a 27-year-old man. And that anytime you get eczema from now on, or any kind of skin rash, you're going to have to worry about this, because it's hard to tell from the onset whether that is cancer or eczema. So learning this information really helped my fear of not knowing what was going on, but it did add to the fear of knowing. So coming back around to my advice, my true advice, if you get cancer, is to surround yourself with people that you can talk to in the dark times. And I don't mean your family or very close friends, because they're going to be there. but they cannot support you in the way that you need support. And being the person in that situation, it's completely different. So find a network of support, find a cancer support group, find a coach or mentor who's gone through a similar thing. Find somebody that you can really talk to, that understands and knows the dark places that your mind wanders into in such a situation. So with this added time that I had off of work, I continued to use it to heal my back, kept going to physical therapy, tried to relax, do things around the house, reduce that stress, especially get those skin bumps to go away. Tried to sleep more, do a lot more self-care. I started taking so many supplements. Oh my gosh. I think I still have a cabinet full of supplements, and that's after throwing out a whole bunch of them. But these were some of the supplements that I had researched that were supposed to help with my kind of cancer and the cancer treatment. And these are some weird vitamins, like turkey tail. Oh my gosh. Some kind of weird fungus, but it's supposed to help my kind of cancer. These aren't the kind of supplements that you can find on the shelves at GNC. They're kind of special order Amazon type of vitamins. So since I was working with the oncologist at the time, he had some CT scans done, and they suggested that I had a few enlarged lymph nodes, which could be the concern with the lymphoma, as I was talking about with the girl from the UK. So my oncologist ordered a PET scan at that time to confirm whether or not I did have cancer anywhere else in my body. And if I did have cancer elsewhere, especially in my lymphatic system, that would have meant chemotherapy and radiation. But if I didn't, they were planning at the time to just do either a topical chemotherapy cream, which is just almost like a lotion type of chemotherapy, from my understanding, or some local radiation on just my toe. The PET scan came back negative. Thanks be to God. And that was good news. It was one of the best news I had during the whole experience. And things really started looking up from there. So they decided that the local radiation on my toe was going to be the best way for me to go. So I met with a radiation oncologist. That was another thing I learned in this whole experience, is just how many different specialties there are for doctors. Hats off to you if you're a doctor. And so he told me about the plan to how they're going to treat the radiation for my toe. So even though my tumor was already cut out and they didn't see anything on a PET scan anywhere else in my body, they don't really consider the cancer gone until they've treated it with chemotherapy or radiation. It's kind of like a recipe for making cookies. You have all these ingredients and you throw them together, but you don't have a cookie until you put it in the oven. That's kind of the way they look at it with this. It's a prescription for how to do something. So I started into radiation, and after first few treatments, I went back to work, and I was working while I finished out radiation, and things were going good, picked that up, and my life started to get back to normal. It was a very interesting journey after that, but I think that's more to tell at later times. But I kind of went in this story with this. I know the jump into radiation and just cutting it off at that is a bit of an abrupt ending, but I think it's a good ending to this story that, I lucked out and only had to go through radiation. It's difficult to call myself a cancer survivor. I really don't see myself as being classified in that group. I've seen what other people go through with their cancer and people who don't survive it, and I wasn't anywhere close to losing my life over this. Most of the battle was in my head. It was a mental battle. So when I talk about those dark places, that was the battle I was fighting. It was my own internal battle. It wasn't a physical battle. Yes, it was stressful, but learning how to deal with that was something that I didn't know that I was not prepared for. And that's the kind of change I'm talking about when I say that this changed my life. And it all happened in 3 days. It was 3 days from the time that my doctor originally looked at that thing on the bottom of my foot and it looked like a cyst, to the time that it flared back up so bad that I was back in the doctor's office saying, cut this thing out. 3 days changed my life forever. How many times do we waste 3 days in our lives? 3 days. It's so simple to change our lives in 3 days. And my life changed that even though I didn't want it to. Just imagine what you can do when you're intentional with your life. How much you can change your life when you're intentional. You want to do the change. You make the change happen in the ways that you want them to go. The opportunities and possibilities are endless. So I want to end by asking you this question. What are you going to do with your next 3 days? Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a rating on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever platform you're listening on. If you want to see more, go to goldenhandcuffsguy.com, where you have access to my blog, my podcasts, and a bunch of other information to help you remove your golden handcuffs.